Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, a slight preface here. I went back and forth about whether or not I should do this video. I was going to do it once, then I wasn't going to do it, then I was. Then it seemed kind of really trivial, with a lot of really heavy, real world events that were going on in the news, and then I was thinking about it again, but then I got really busy, and then I was like, kind of, I don't know. And then I kind of got inspired by watching Howard Mouse's recent video where he's talking about, things being PC and how it's affected him and how he thinks it may be hurting the comics industry and stuff like that. So, and it got me thinking again. Now, my original video was really going to be about how I thought a lot of people in the comic book community were just really overreacting to a lot of recent, announcements by Marvel and things, hashtags about, various Marvel comic characters and things like that. But I did want to address a couple of things. Like I said, Howard Mouse's video got me thinking about. Let's see here. Well, certain things I agreed with, certain other things I saw where he was coming from, certain things, well, I got his point, but I kind of interpreted it a little bit differently. So, let's start here. One thing he was talking about is how, like, recently he had been, approached by people who were, quote unquote, social justice warriors or politically correct or what have you. And, they wanted him to engage in, certain topics and things, but he felt that they were doing so in such a way that kind of put him on the defensive. And while on one hand he did want to participate in the discussion, he wasn't comfortable being made to feel like he had to defend himself or alleged views that people just kind of assumed he would have without actually talking to him first, and if you don't do it this way, then obviously you must be this or what have you. And I totally understand how he feels about stuff like that. I also understand where he's talking about how, like, diversity has kind of become this big buzzword and things. And while he had come across these articles where people had kind of taken Marvel and DC, or at least Marvel, to task, for their failings to be more diverse or whatever, and how he's seen all these articles where they've gotten things wrong, just completely wrong. I've seen articles like that. I've seen articles where people praise Marvel and still got all the facts wrong. So I totally understand what he says there too. And I also totally agree with him where he says what we really need in the comics industry and the comics as a medium is a diversity of ideas, a diversity of genres, a diversity of different storytelling approaches and things like that. I'm a really strong believer in that, and I think he was right on when he said that. Where I kind of start seeing things a little bit differently is just the idea that somehow there's something unprecedented happening today with comics, or mainstream comics, I guess we should say, that it's all political correctness run amok, or that it's social justice warriors are ruining comics. Because the way I see it, comics have always changed. They've changed to fit the mood of the audience or the general public, or the whims and ideas of the creators or the editorial staff or management or politics at the time or whatever. I mean, just look at it this way. It's a Superman comic book from the 80s is nothing like a Superman comic from the 40s, which is nothing like a Superman comic from the 70s, which is nothing like a Superman comic book from the 30s, which is nothing like a Superman comic book from the 90s, And there's different values reflected in those comics. There's different, it has nothing to do with, like, the powers and the, supporting cast and things like that. Although, of course, those things were substantial changes. But I'm saying there's different, social values reflected in those comics. There's different artistic values reflected. And comics always change. They kind of have to change to keep going, you know what I mean? And sometimes there's changes that happen, and they're substantial changes, and they're lasting. And then sometimes it's just, trend of the era, and it's there for a few years, and then we're on to the next thing. Look at it this way. Look at the 90s. A lot of people thought, comics were headed for a downfall in the 90s. And you can maybe, I don't know, you can even say they did take a hard hit because, let's face it, back in the 90s, a big hit was like a million seller comic. We're not going to see those days anymore. But getting back to the point, you know, you had all the grim and gritty era, the bad girl era. You had all the guys had mullets. They're all frowning and gritting their teeth. They had giant guns and giant swords, and the women were just as bad. They're all mean looking, only they have giant tatas, and they had super skimpy suits on, and everybody's got straps and pouches, and every other comic had some sort of gimmick foil cover thing happening. And you had people who grew up in a slightly earlier era of comics saying this is going to ruin things, and but they were selling at the time. But my point is, okay, was this happening because of any sort of political correctness? Was it happening because it was a right-wing conspiracy? And and all the conservatives are out there ruining comics with their gun fetishes and their lust for violence or whatever? Or is it, there's certain things happening in pop culture and the broader, like I said, mood of the country or the comic book audience was just interested in that sort of thing at the time, and that's kind of how I see it. When DC killed Superman and replaced him with 4 spin-off characters, I mean, was it really to pander to any sort of political group, or was it more, look kids, not just 1, not just 2, but 4 brand new Superman, collect them all, And yeah, while I do understand the whole idea that there's a lot of people who, push their political ideas and views on other people, and I think they're, in a kind of, not always most civil way, sometimes in an obnoxious way, sometimes people don't know what they're talking about, but I don't think that's particularly a trait that's, indicative to one political point of view over the other. I think conservative people and right-wing people can be just as obnoxious as liberal people. What do I want to say here? There's the PC crowd that might be obnoxious, but the anti-PC crowd is just as obnoxious sometimes. And we'll probably get to that in a moment. But yeah, I do think there's a lot of things that are hurting comics, like mainstream comics, like Marvel and DC. But I don't really think it has anything to do with that comics are getting too liberal or being too conservative or anything like that. I think it really has more to do with the way that Marvel and DC are trying to market and sell their comics these days. Canon and Comics did a really great video a couple weeks ago that I thought was it was excellent. I agreed with maybe 90% of everything she said, and she hit on like some really excellent points. I think if anything's hurting comic books, it has more to do with the non-stop events, the constant renumbering, the return of like the gimmicks and things like that. Charging $4.99 for stories that don't really go anywhere. I think that's hurting comic books way more than however liberal Gail Simone is, or however conservative even Van Scriver or Chuck Dixon may be. But yeah, the thing that got me thinking about this like a couple of weeks ago, even before I saw Tim's video, was just like how over the last several weeks, people in the comic book community and people on the internet were just kind of like losing their stuff over, several little announcements and things that were coming out of Marvel, or debates around Marvel characters. And it's fine. I think everybody has a right to their opinion and everybody should express their opinion. But my personal subjective opinion, not insulting anybody, I just thought a lot of people were just losing their shit over stuff that it's not worth losing your shit over, Hydra Cap. I mean, I don't know, man. It's like, you've seen that premise for, you know, a story like 100 times. You know, the whole idea of good guy looks like he's been working with the bad guys. I mean, seriously, it's standard superhero trope number 37 or something. You know, uh, and Marvel announced a couple new titles. There's going to be a new character called oh, what's his name? Mosaic, you know. Well, not too many people freaked out about, well, there was really a small amount and then it died away really quick about, oh, another PC character being shoved down my throat. But what I thought was funnier, though, was that you have all these people that I saw going, you know, stamping their feet going, why are they giving this character a comic? And I don't know who this is. And they should be giving, you know, my favorite character such and such a comic. You know, this is terrible. And it's like, you know, you don't even know what the comic is, you know. I'm not saying you have to like it, but, you know, everybody, you know what it is? It's the irony was that, you know, everybody's saying, oh, why doesn't Marvel and DC create more new characters? Or, oh, hey, you know, I'd like to see more diversity, but have some brand new characters, you know, and here it is. And, you know, some people, not everybody, obviously, are, like I said, just stamping their feet and trying to piss on it, you know. You know, people pouting because Marvel has the audacity to be putting out all these lighthearted books. You know, you've got Squirrel Girl and Hellcat, and now they're going to bring back the Great Lake Avengers. And I can't believe they're doing this. You know, I'm an 18 to 21-year-old guy, man. I can't see myself buying Squirrel Girl. And it's like, then don't buy it. You know, just you're not being. I don't know how I want to say this, but they're not out to get you just because they put out a comic book that you might not be interested in. You know, I don't like Shamrock Shakes, but just because McDonald's keeps selling them, it doesn't mean they've got a personal vendetta against me. And then there was a whole Riri Williams thing that just happened, and it's like, how do I want to put this? I mean, I saw it and I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I thought, okay, good, fine. We've had multiple Supergirls and Power Girls, multiple Batgirls, a couple of different Wonder Girls, multiple Spider Girls. We had a Thor girl. They even had a Hulkling, and I think they had a Hulk girl. I don't think that was her name. I can't remember the character's name, but she was a character who I don't know the right. Now I'm going to embarrass myself, but I don't know exactly the whole creation of the character, but I think it's supposed to be somebody took some of Hulk's DNA and mixed it with Thunder's DNA and came up with this teenage, you know, red-haired, green-skinned girl Hulk type character. But, you know, when I saw Riri Williams, I said, okay, fine. We've had all those other sort of teenage girl spin-offs of the more popular character. Okay, now we're trying to get, we have Iron Man, so we have Iron Girl. And then now we're also going to get Doctor Doom as the, I forgot his name, the Incredible Iron Man, or it's the whole superior Spider-Man shtick, only with Iron Man. It's going to be Doctor Doom and Iron Man armor. Okay, whatever. We're getting two tropes at the exact same time instead of one. But I think we've seen this before. It's just standard, you know, superhero, you know, trope 97 plus trope 134. You see it all the time. It's been going on for years. I mean, you might as well get mad at, you know, superheroes who keep wearing domino masks or something like that. It's just a staple of the genre at this point. And like I said, I guess that's just the nature of the beast. I know if I put up a video tomorrow about why the Incredible Hulk is the greatest superhero ever, you know, I know there's going to be somebody that says, you know, right on, the Hulk is the greatest. And somebody else is going to say, I disagree with you, and here's why. And I know somebody else is going to be like, fuck you, man, you're an asshole. You're why this country's going downhill. Fuck you. You know, and I know there's just those people out there, but but yeah, like I said, I think it's good to like sort of talk about these things and talk about ideas and themes that are in comics and values and politics and things like that, because on one hand it's just lighthearted entertainment, but on the other hand it's an art form, and it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of the society that we all live in, and all of us have our own philosophies and morals and ideas and personal views, whatever, that we bring into the experience of reading these things and enjoying these things. So I think it's a good thing to talk about what this character represents or what that character doesn't represent, or how the company is or is not protecting the, I guess, integrity of these ideas, for lack of a better word. But I also kind of hope that some of us, will actually talk about the substance of these books and things, and not just sort of kind of hurl epithets at each other, or worse, hurl buzzwords and cliches and things at each other. I mean, I won't be shocked if it's not next week, it'll be the week after. If it's not the week after, it'll be the week after that. Marvel will announce some other new comic. It'll be, something like, it'll be Lockjaw. It'll be Lockjaw and Ms. Lion, Two-Fisted Tales or something. And they won't announce a writer. They won't announce an artist. The comic will not come out for 6 months. But there's going to be some people jumping on the internet and with the I don't know what I want to say here, but with a bully pulpit to beat on, this comic book is racist, and it promotes the prison industrial congressional complex or something, or this comic book is part of the feminist plot to destroy American values, or whatever, and like I said, it's cool to say, hey, this looks interesting, I'll check it out, or this looks stupid, I'm gonna save my money, I'm not giving my money for this trash. But it's kind of weird when people, like I said, want to use stuff like that to just fling stuff at each other, and it doesn't even, and like I said, you're not even talking about what's in the comic or what the character is. You're just making up stuff based on what you're assuming about who you think the other guy over there is, so. I mean, I've been lucky. Everybody, almost everybody that I deal with on YouTube has been, really nice, really supportive, really encouraging. I always have something, either nice to say or, educational to add or whatever. So I really appreciate it, and I feel really lucky in that regard. I don't get too many trolls or anything like that. I do get some trolls, but it's kind of ironic. I get trolls on old videos that I did like 4 years ago, but whatever, and that's just how it goes. So I don't know, I guess that's it. It's kind of like what's the old saying? What's the saying? If you're having a debate with somebody and you have to stoop to calling the other guy Hitler, then you really don't have much of an argument. And so now, kind of apply that. If your argument is about teenage girl superheroes or who should or should not be in the Avengers, there you go. Okay, so anyway, that's it. I hope I didn't, I'm not really trying to like call anybody out or piss anybody off or anything like that, but it was just some stuff that I was kind of thinking about. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for listening, and you guys have a good day.